She cheated on me on our wedding anniversary, and she still blames me for everything. A true and shocking story about love, pain, betrayal, and overcoming. In this moving story, you will delve into the drama of someone who believed in love, trusted with their eyes closed, and ended up being torn apart by the person they least expected. Get ready to feel the pain of an unexpected betrayal and the strength needed to rebuild yourself. Subscribe to the channel for more heart-warming stories. Like and share with anyone who needs to hear this story. It was supposed to be an unforgettable night. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of shared life, of ups and downs, of good and bad moments, of overcoming obstacles that we believed we had experienced together. I had planned everything. I reserved the restaurant where we celebrated our first date, prepared a special gift, something simple but symbolic. A little box with photos of the two of us, memories of trips, smiles, achievements. I even thought about writing a letter, but I gave up. I thought she wouldn't care about those things. Not anymore. Since the beginning of the year, something had been different. She seemed distant, aloof. She spent more time on her cell phone, exchanged messages that she never showed me, smiled strangely when I asked her what was so funny. I tried to convince myself that it was all in my head, the silly paranoia of a guy who never wanted to be jealous. But that night, on our wedding anniversary, I was sure that things were going to change. I was going to win back the woman of my life. I needed this. I needed it more than she could possibly imagine. The restaurant was packed, the candles on the tables flickering, the silverware clinking softly, and I was waiting. The waiter had already come twice to ask if he could bring our order, and I, holding the phone in my hand, just said, "No, thank you. She should be here soon." Half an hour late, 40 minutes. I tried calling, but nothing. Messages on WhatsApp read, "No response." The waiter came by again, and his look was a mixture of pity and discomfort. I was being the pathetic guy waiting for his wife who never came. That's when I got the call. Not from her, but from a friend, Leandro. His voice sounded strange, a little tense, almost as if he had been forced to call me. "Man, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think you should come to the mall parking lot." I asked him what was going on. He hesitated, took a deep breath and said, "Just come, okay? Come now." My heart raced. I got up from the table so fast that the chair fell over, the eyes of the entire room burning into me like torches. I left without paying, without taking my coat, with the night's cold cutting my face, my hands shaking. The mall was 10 minutes away from where I was. The drive seemed like an eternity, my head buzzing with thoughts, assumptions, denials. It can't be her. I tried to convince myself, but the tone of Leandro's voice, the way he spoke, made it clear that something was very wrong. I arrived at the parking lot and saw her car parked in a dark spot, backed into a corner where the cameras would hardly be able to see it. And there, next to the door, the shadow of two bodies together, stuck together, her and another man. My chest closed as if an iron hand was crushing my lungs. I felt my blood run cold, my legs shaking. I wanted to run to them, scream, pull her away, ask what she was doing, but I stayed still, as if I were glued to the ground. The car door opened, she got out, adjusting her clothes, and he got out after her, a guy I had never seen before. Tall, with a shaved head, and a smile that showed he was not afraid of anything. She looked around as if to make sure no one had seen her, and her eyes met mine. For a second, she froze, her smile faded, and I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen before. Fear. It wasn't regret, it wasn't pain, it was fear, as if she knew everything was about to fall apart. I approached slowly, not understanding how my legs still obeyed me. Leandro was standing behind me, trying to hold me by the shoulder, whispering, "Man, don't do that, let's go." But I didn't hear. I could only see her. I got closer and she said the most absurd thing anyone could say in that situation. She looked at me, fixed her hair, lifted her chin and said, "What are you doing here? Are you following me now? That's why our marriage is ending, you know. Because you're paranoid." I froze. I was speechless. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or scream. I just stood there staring at her, at the man beside her, at my world that was falling apart. My wife, the woman I had built a life with, cheating on me on our anniversary and blaming myself for it. Leandro tried to pull my arm, saying, "Man, let's go. This is going to end badly." But I couldn't move. I wanted to understand. I wanted an explanation. Anything. I wanted her to say, "I'm sorry," to fall to her knees and say it was a mistake, that she loved me, that it was just a moment of weakness. But she didn't. She didn't apologize. She didn't say anything. She just turned her back and got into the car. The man got in too, as if nothing had happened, as if I was nothing, as if I wasn't there. The car drove off, leaving the noise of the engine mixed with the bitter taste of betrayal in my throat. I stood there, alone, standing still, with a crushed heart, empty hands, and the certainty that that night would haunt me forever. I stood there for a few minutes, like a man who had just been run over but with no visible scars. Leandro tried to pull me along, his voice sounding distant, as if I could hear everything underwater. "Come on, man, let's go. This isn't going anywhere." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe properly. The air felt too heavy for my lungs. I stared at the spot where her car had disappeared, as if the asphalt could give me back what I had just lost. My wedding anniversary, our story, the woman I thought I knew. When I finally managed to move, I sat on the sidewalk, my head in my hands, the metallic taste of despair rising in my throat. Leandro crouched down beside me, put his hand on my shoulder and said softly, "I know it hurts, brother, but you can't let it destroy you." I shook my head, not knowing what to say. How could anyone understand what I was feeling? How could I explain the hole in my chest, the feeling of having been thrown away like trash? I felt small, ridiculous, like a man who had given everything he had and received nothing in return. I stood there for over an hour. Leandro left, leaving me alone, and I watched the cars passing by, the people laughing, life going on as if my pain were invisible. And it was. To the world, I was just another guy left on the sidewalk. To me, I was the man who had just lost everything. When I was able to get up, I went home. I opened the door, and her scent was still in the air, like a punch in the gut. The lights were off. The table was set for a dinner that never happened. The gift I had bought was left in the corner like a cruel reminder. I sat on the couch, holding the box of photos, and started looking at them one by one. The two of us smiling on the beach, hugging in the park, laughing about something silly in the kitchen, and it all seemed so distant, as if those people were strangers, as if I had been deceived the whole time. The night passed slowly. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. My head spun in circles, always returning to the same question. Why? What had I done wrong? What had she found in him that I didn't have? Was it money? Was it attention? Was it just the thrill of the forbidden? I relived every moment of our marriage, trying to find signs that I had ignored. The forced smiles, the long silences, the unexplained departures. It was all there, but I didn't want to see it. Or I couldn't. The next day, she came home as if nothing had happened. I heard the key in the door, the sound of her heels on the hardwood floor, her purse being dropped on the table. She walked into the living room, saw me on the couch, and frowned as if I were the problem, as if I was wrong for being there. I tried to speak, but my voice wouldn't come out. She sighed, crossed her arms, and said, "Are you going to start the drama show now? I don't have the patience for this, Rodrigo." I trembled. I wanted to scream, to ask her how she had the nerve to look me in the eye, to pretend she hadn't done anything. But she continued, You need to stop acting like you're the victim. Our marriage isn't broken because of me. You know that. You're insecure, jealous, suffocating. I just wanted some freedom. Freedom. That was the word. As if she were a prisoner and I was the jailer. I laughed, but not with joy. It was a bitter, nervous laugh that seemed to rip my throat apart. I said in a low voice, trying not to scream, "Freedom? Is that what you call freedom? To betray the man who has always been by your side? To cheat on our wedding anniversary? To make a fool of me in front of others?" She didn't back down. On the contrary, she approached me, her eyes shining with anger, and said, "Do you think you're that perfect, Rodrigo? Do you think I was happy here? That I wanted to live this happy couple's little show while you worked late and didn't even look at me anymore? Do you think all of this is my fault? Look at you. Look what you've become. A bitter, paranoid man who doesn't know how to live. I just wanted to feel something again. I just wanted to live." That word echoed in my head. Live. As if I were the weight that kept her life from happening. I felt something inside me break. A part of me, the one that still believed in us, shattered completely. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked at her and said, "Go. Go live then. But don't come back. There's no place for you here anymore." She stared at me for a few seconds, as if she expected me to give in, to apologize for something I didn't even know what it was. But I didn't say anything. She grabbed her bag and left without looking back, and the door closed with a sharp snap that sounded like a heart breaking. I stayed there, on the couch, in silence, looking at the set table, at the photos scattered around, at the emptiness. And it was there that I realized she had betrayed me, hurt me, destroyed me, and she still tried to blame me for everything. I spent days not knowing what to do. Every corner of the house seemed to scream her name. The smell of her perfume was still on the pillow. Her clothes were folded in the closet as if she would return at any moment. The lipstick marks on forgotten glasses. I walked around the house like a ghost, opening drawers, looking through things, but without the courage to throw them away. I read old messages on my cell phone, tried to find clues, some explanation, but all I saw were cold, banal conversations without the intensity I expected. I wanted a reason, a motive, something that would make me understand. But all I found was emptiness. Friends started asking about her, as did family. I didn't know what to say. I said she was traveling, busy, sorting things out at work. The truth was that she had simply disappeared, as if she had evaporated from my life. The pain was so great that I thought about calling her, asking her to come back, telling her that I forgave her, that I understood, that we could start over. But something inside me screamed louder. No, I couldn't humiliate myself. I couldn't lower myself any further than I had already been. Then one afternoon, I got a text from her. Just 2 words. "We need to talk." My heart raced. My palms sweated. I nearly dropped my phone. I debated for hours whether I should respond. Finally, I simply sent her a simple, "About what?" She responded quickly, as if she'd been expecting it. "About us." We arranged to meet at the cafe where she used to go with her friends. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting with her phone in her hand, her eyes hidden behind sunglasses, her mouth dry and serious. I sat opposite, trying to remain calm, and she began to speak as if she had rehearsed every word. "Rodrigo, I need you to understand that things are not as simple as they seem. I didn't want things to get to this point, but you left me with no options. I felt suffocated, trapped in a life that wasn't mine. You lived for work, for your problems, and forgot that I was there. I just wanted to feel alive again. I wanted to be seen, to be desired." I held back a laugh, a bitter laugh, of pain, of disbelief. I said, "So the solution was to cheat on our wedding anniversary? Was that it? You wanted to be seen, And the way to do that was to throw yourself into the arms of another man, hidden, while I waited for you to celebrate our story." She sighed, played with her hair, and said something I will never forget. "Do you think you were the only one who suffered, Rodrigo? I suffered too. And the difference is that you always had the option to change, to notice me, to do something different. You chose to close yourself off in your world, and now you want to blame me for looking for someone who would see me." I felt like I was being stabbed by her words. Not only had she cheated on me, but she was blaming me as if I were responsible for everything. She said it was my fault, my lack of attention, my absence. I tried to stay calm, but my voice came out firm, cold. "No, I may have failed. I may have made a mistake. But cheating is a choice. You chose it. You could have spoken, you could have screamed, you could have cried, you could have left me. But you chose to cheat." She looked at me as if I were a stranger, as if I weren't the man she had shared a decade of her life with. And then she said, with tears in her eyes but without a single tear falling, "I did what I had to do to survive, Rodrigo. If you don't understand that, that's your problem." She got up, picked up her bag and left, leaving me there with the cold coffee in front of me and a lump in my throat that seemed impossible to swallow. I sat at that table for hours, staring into space, trying to understand how everything had fallen apart so quickly. I wondered if love dies like that, all at once, or if it slowly fades away, like a candle that loses its flame until it turns to smoke. I wondered if she had ever truly felt what she said she felt, or if it had all been a show, a role she had played until she was tired. When I got home, something had changed inside me. I didn't cry anymore. I didn't feel angry or hurt or hope. I just felt an immense emptiness, as if I had been emptied from the inside. The love had turned to ashes, and I realized, there, alone in the dark room, that she could try to blame me for whatever she wanted. But deep down, she had made a choice. She had decided to destroy me. The next few days were a blur. I would get up, shower, eat something, but I wasn't really there. I was on autopilot, not feeling, not thinking, not reacting. Her messages stopped coming, and silence settled like a thick fog inside the house. I would find myself looking at my phone, waiting for her to send me something, an explanation, an apology, a sign of regret. But nothing came, and each absence was a knife stuck deeper into my chest. Until one day, weeks later, she appeared at the door of the house, as if she had every right to enter, as if nothing had happened. She was carrying a small suitcase, a coat thrown over her arm, her face tired, but with that look in her eyes, the look of someone who believes the world revolves around their own will. She entered without asking permission, without saying anything, and went straight to the room, as if it was still hers. I followed her, trying to understand what was happening. She dropped her suitcase on the floor and said, in an almost casual tone, "I need to stay here for a few days. Things are complicated out there." Outside, as if I were a hotel, a train station, a temporary shelter for when her life went off the rails. I stood in the doorway, crossing my arms, trying to control the turmoil inside me. I said in a low voice, full of irony, "Sure, come in. The house is yours. I just don't know if there's any room left for your conscience." She looked at me, and the contempt in her eyes was almost palpable. She said, "Rodrigo, please. I don't have the patience for your indirect messages. I just need some time." I laughed, but it was a dry laugh without humor, without life. I replied, "Time for what? To decide who you're going to stay with today? To choose whether you're going to destroy someone else or whether you're going to try to rebuild what you broke yourself?" She exploded. She started yelling, telling me that I was selfish, that I didn't understand anything, that I treated her like a prisoner. I didn't yell back. I just watched, as if I were watching a bad play with dialogue that didn't make sense. And she kept talking, pouring out words like a runaway truck, trying to put all the blame on me. "You never really loved me, Rodrigo. Never. You just wanted someone to show off, to say you had a perfect wife. But you never saw me as a woman, as a person. I felt invisible by your side. Invisible. I approached, very slowly, and said softly, so softly that she had to stop screaming to hear, "Did you feel invisible? So tell me, that guy in the parking lot, did he make you feel alive? Was that it? Was that what was worth destroying everything we built?" She was speechless. For the first time, her face lost its mask. She went pale, her lips trembling, as if I had ripped away her skin and exposed the wound. She tried to say something, but nothing came out. And in that heavy silence, I realized she knew what she had done. She knew the weight of her choices. I turned and left the room. I went to the kitchen, sat at the table, and started going through the photos that were scattered around. Our photos, our memories. It was like watching a horror movie disguised as a romance. I saw the smiles, the hugs, the trips, the birthdays, and I wondered, when did it all start to fall apart? When did she start looking at me like a stranger? She left the room after a while, calmer, as if she had put on a new mask. She sat in front of me and said, in an almost sweet, but false, forced voice, "Rodrigo, shall we try? Please, we can try, at least for ourselves, for what we've experienced." I looked at her and saw the woman I loved, but I also saw the woman who betrayed me, who broke me, who left me alone on the most important day of our lives. I saw it all at once, and I realized that it was impossible to separate them. She was all of that together, the love and the pain, the dream and the disappointment, the beginning and the end. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes for a few seconds, and when I opened them, I said, "Try what, Juliana? Try to forget that you cheated on me? Try to pretend that nothing happened? Try to be happy knowing that you chose another man on our wedding anniversary? It's impossible. There's no fixing it. There's no going back." She started crying, heavy, ugly tears that wet the table. But I didn't cry. I didn't feel like crying anymore. I just felt such an emptiness that it felt like I was floating. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and said the last thing before leaving, "Juliana, you've lost me, and I won't let you destroy me anymore." I left home without looking back, without knowing where I was going, but with the certainty that I could no longer be the same. Because after everything she did, after all the pain, after all the betrayal, she still tried to blame me. The days dragged by like a weight on my chest. I tried to move on with my life, but everything around me seemed to be burdened by her shadow. The dining table still had the mark of her glass, the sofa still smelled of the perfume she wore, and in the bathroom mirror, the steam still traced the outline of her face when she was in a hurry. It was as if the entire house was her ghost, haunting every corner, every detail, reminding me that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't erase the past. I tried to fill the void. I went for runs. I joined a gym. I started working longer hours than I needed to, as if I could tire my body out to the point where I wouldn't have the energy to think. But the nights were cruel. When silence fell, my mind began to scream. I found myself reliving it all. The scene in the parking lot, the look in her eyes, the cutting words, the way she shifted the blame onto me as if I were responsible for it all. And then one night, she sent another message. A short sentence, but it felt like it carried a hidden knife. "I need my things." I took a deep breath, leaning against the bedroom wall, my phone shaking in my hand. I wanted to tell her to come get it, to take everything, to disappear from my life for good. But something held me back. A part of me wanted to see her one more time, to look into her eyes and tell her everything that was stuck inside. I answered with a single word, "Come." The next morning, she showed up. She was dressed up, like the woman I knew before everything happened. Tight jeans, a light blouse, her hair tied up in a messy but beautiful way, the way only she could do it. I felt my chest tighten, an ache so familiar it felt like it was part of me. She walked in, looked around as if she were visiting a place where she had lived her whole life. But now it was just a stranger. She picked up some clothes, books, a box of mementos. I watched her, silent, with my arms crossed, not knowing if I wanted to scream or hug her. She avoided my gaze, but when she finally raised her head and looked at me, her eyes were red, teary, but steady. It was then that she said, in a calm, almost cold tone, "Rodrigo, I know I made a mistake, but you made a mistake too. Don't think that it was just my betrayal that ended us. You stopped listening to me, seeing me. I tried to show you, I tried to tell you, but you never wanted to see. And now I'm trying to move on. You should too." I was speechless. I wanted to say so many things. I wanted to scream, to ask her if she really believed what she was saying, if she could sleep at night knowing what she had done. But I just said, "You're right. I should move on. But you know what's hardest? It's not forgetting what you did. It's knowing that even after everything, you still try to blame me." She took a deep breath, closed the box, and with one last look said, "I hope one day you'll understand, and that you'll be happy truly." She left, the door closing slowly, as if even the wind was afraid to make a noise. I stood there, staring at the door, at the emptiness, at the house that seemed even quieter now that she was gone. A few days later, I got a call from Leandro. He had seen her with the same guy, in a bar, laughing, drinking, as if the world were perfect. I thanked him but hung up before he could say anything else. I didn't want to hear, I didn't want to know, I didn't want anything more from her. I finally understood that she had moved on, and I needed to do the same. But it wasn't easy, because no matter how much I told myself that she was in the past, that it was all over, that I deserved something better, the pain wouldn't go away. The betrayal still burned like an open wound, a scar that I knew I would carry forever. I would sit on the couch, look around the empty room, and wonder, how could someone who says they love you destroy you like this? How could someone you gave everything to just turn your back and move on like nothing happened? How could she cheat on me on our anniversary and still have the audacity to blame me for what happened? These questions echoed in my head, night after night, as I tried to rebuild what was left of me. I withdrew from everything, from friends, from family, from work. I started walking alone, wandering the streets aimlessly, as if the world had lost its meaning. The pain of betrayal was not just the fact that she had betrayed me, but the way she made it seem like everything was my fault. I relived every word she said, every look, every cold gesture. The way she tried to reverse the roles, making me feel like I was the one in the wrong, that I was the burden in her life. And it destroyed me inside. One afternoon, I went to the place where it all began. The little square where we had our first kiss. The bench where we planned our life. The restaurant where I proposed to her. I sat there on the same bench as years ago and looked up at the sky. The same sky that blessed us that day now seemed gray and heavy. Life seemed to laugh at me, as if to say, "You were too naive. You believed in promises that were never real." I wondered how she could have done that. Was she already thinking about someone else while she was holding my hand? Was she already feeling trapped when she smiled at me, like she said? I relived the scene in the parking lot like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The way she adjusted her clothes, the way she looked at me with contempt, the way she accused me of being the one to blame. It was like a punch in the gut every time I closed my eyes. And then, in the middle of that afternoon, I got a notification on my phone. A photo of her, posted on social media, smiling, in a restaurant, with the same guy. The same guy. He was holding her hand, and she was smiling as if she were happy, as if nothing had happened. And the worst part, the caption. The caption said, "Starting life over with someone who really understands me." I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened so much that it felt like I was going to faint. I wanted to scream, I wanted to break the phone, I wanted to disappear. But I stayed there, still, staring at that image that seemed to tear me apart. I felt tears burning my eyes, but I didn't cry. I was tired of crying, tired of being the man who begged for crumbs of love. I turned off my cell phone, threw it on the bench next to me and looked up at the sky, asking God, the universe, whoever, why? Why me? Why her? But there was no answer. There never is. The pain of betrayal is like that. It comes with no explanation, no justification. It just comes and destroys, like a fire that consumes everything and leaves nothing but ashes. That night, I went home and started packing her things. I took every piece of clothing, every shoe, every memento and put them in boxes. Every piece I touched was like a shard of pain, but I knew it was necessary. I needed to clean out my house, my space, my heart. I needed to rip her out of me, even if it hurt, like ripping out a piece of my soul. At the bottom of the drawer, I found a letter. It was an old letter, one I had written to her on our 5th anniversary. I talked about the future, about my dreams, about how important she was to me. I read every line, and the tears began to flow uncontrollably. I wasn't perfect. I had my flaws, my faults, but I loved her. I loved her in a way she will never understand. And she threw it all away. The next morning I called Leandro. I said I needed to talk. He came over, sat on the couch, and I broke down. I told him everything without filtering, without hiding anything. And after listening to me, he said something that stuck in my mind. Rodrigo, she cheated on you. She hurt you. But the worst part is that she tried to convince you that it was your fault. That's the cruelest part. Because when someone cheats on you, it's already like stabbing you. But when someone cheats on you and still tries to make you believe that it was your fault, that's torture. That's a type of manipulation that destroys anyone. You're not to blame, man. You're not to blame. I cried. I cried like a child who had lost everything. But for the first time, those words made me feel something new. It wasn't relief. It wasn't joy. It was the feeling that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the monster. I wasn't the culprit. And in that moment, there with the sun shining through the window, with the smell of coffee in the air, with the boxes piled up in the corner of the room, I understood. She had betrayed me. And worse, she had tried to destroy me. But I was still here. I was in pieces, but I was still breathing. And that, as hard as it was to accept, was the first step to starting to rebuild myself. The next few days were strangely silent. There were no more messages from her, no more calls, no more requests to come back, no more empty apologies. It was as if she had disappeared from my life, taking with her every trace of what we once were. I thought this would bring relief, but her silence was like a deafening echo. Every minute without news was a reminder that she had truly moved on, as if I had never existed. I tried to fill my time. I went back to working more than I should have. I took on projects I would have turned down before. I started going for walks at dawn, when the city was empty, because that was the only time I felt peace. But the truth is that the pain didn't go away. It just changed shape. Sometimes it was a tightness in my chest. Other times a silent anger. Other times a sadness so deep that it made me feel like the whole world had lost its color. One rainy night, I sat on the couch in the living room with a half-empty bottle of wine and the sound of rain beating against the window. The lights were off, and the reflection of the street lit the room intermittently, like an old movie playing in slow motion. It was there, in the middle of that silence, that I thought, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the man she tried to make me believe I was. She accused me of being paranoid, controlling, jealous. She made me believe that I was the problem, that I was preventing her from living, that I was suffocating her. But looking back on it all now, with the distance that time brings, I realized how cruel she had been. Because the problem was never my distrust. The problem was the secret she was hiding. The problem was that she thought it was fair to lie, to cheat, and then to point the finger at me as if I were the villain. I decided to write. I took an old notebook, sat at the table, and began to write down everything I felt. I wrote about the love I had given her, about the ruined wedding anniversary, about the pain of seeing her look in those moments. I wrote about the anger, the sadness, the shame, the fear. I wrote everything, as if each word were a piece of the weight I carried in my chest. And when I finished, I realized that my hands were shaking, but something inside me had changed. It was as if, for the first time, I was taking back my story. A few days later, I met Leandro again. We sat in a random bar and he told me that she was really with that guy, that they had posted a picture together on a trip to the coast. I took a deep breath. That dull pain came back, but it was different now. It was as if I was looking from the outside, as if that story belonged to someone else. And Leandro told me, "Rodrigo, you deserve more. You deserve someone who sees you, who admires you, who chooses you every day. And if she chose someone else, if she chose to throw everything away, that's her problem, not yours." I smiled, a small but sincere smile. For the first time in weeks, I felt like it made sense. I deserved more. I deserved someone who would look at me and see value, not someone who would betray me and still try to destroy me from the inside. That night, before I went to sleep, I looked in the mirror and saw a broken man, but still standing. A man who had been betrayed, humiliated, hurt, but who was still there. A man who, despite everything, had not stopped being himself. And it was at that moment that I understood. She tried to blame me because it was easier than facing her own mistakes. She tried to make me feel small to justify what she did. But I was not small. I was not to blame. I was just a man who trusted too much, who loved too much, and who, in the end, was betrayed by someone who did not deserve even half of what I gave. And that was the biggest lesson of all. No matter how much you love someone, if that person doesn't value you, if they don't choose you every day, they will hurt you. And worse, they will try to make you believe that it's your fault. I looked at myself and promised, I will never let anyone make me feel this way again. I woke up early that morning and something felt different. The sky was clear, the air smelled like new beginnings, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel that heaviness in my chest. It was as if the silence of the house, which had once suffocated me, was now an invitation to start over. I got up, drank a strong coffee, looked at the empty table, at the chairs where she used to sit, and thought, she's gone, and now it's my turn to follow. I grabbed the boxes of her things, her clothes, her books, her perfumes, her old letters, even that wedding album I had treasured, and put them in my car. I drove to her mother's house, parked in front, and left the boxes at the gate. I rang the doorbell and left without waiting for an answer. I didn't need any more goodbyes, any more explanations, any more words. I had said it all. I had felt it all. Now it was time to let it go. I went back home and started to tidy up my life. I moved the furniture around, painted the walls, changed the curtains. Each new detail was like I was wiping away a piece of the pain, like I was saying to myself, this is mine now, only mine. I deleted the photos from my phone, deleted the memories from social media, and cleared my chat history. It wasn't out of anger, it was out of freedom. Each click was like cutting an invisible chain that tied me to the past. I needed to free myself, and this was my way of doing it. And it was in this process that I truly understood something that Leandro had said. She didn't destroy you, she destroyed the idea you had of her. I spent so much time trying to understand what I had done wrong, trying to find the flaws in myself, trying to decipher where I had lost her. And the truth is that I didn't lose her. She wasn't mine a long time ago. The woman I loved, the one I chose, the one I believed in, maybe she never existed. Maybe she was an illusion I created, a fantasy I clung to. And when the mask fell, what was left was someone who chose betrayal, lies, destruction. I wasn't to blame. I wasn't the problem. I was just the man who believed too much, who gave too much, who trusted too much. And her, she was the one who chose to leave, who chose to hurt, who chose to live a lie instead of facing the truth. Weeks passed, and one day, out of the blue, she tried to call me. The phone vibrated, her name appearing on the screen like a ghost from the past. I stared at the screen for a few seconds and then pressed reject. I didn't need to hear her voice anymore. I didn't need answers anymore. I didn't need anything anymore. She was no longer part of my story. I went for a walk, the sun on my face, the wind in my hair, and I realized that the world was moving on. I was moving on. I was alive. And for the first time, truly, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Because in the end, the pain passes. The betrayal heals. The questions lose their strength. And what remains is the certainty that you survived. And that, no matter how much someone tries to destroy you, the only person who can truly end you is yourself. And I chose not to destroy myself. I chose to live. Comment below. Have you ever experienced something similar? Your experience can help others feel less alone.